Hello everyone, how's it going? And welcome to episode 3 of me taking a look at all the new runes in Wild Rift patch 4.3. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at the Domination tree. And honestly, this is going to be a very long one. There is a lot of new runes in this tree, but also there's a lot of cool mechanics and also a lot of cool little hidden tricks that you could do with some of these runes. I also compared Cheap Shot versus Mark of the Week in this video, so you'll be able to see which one is best for you in which situations and with what champion. So without further ado, let's head into the video. Moving into our second group, or our second tier of minor runes, we're going to be taking a look at Domination. Now, Domination is mainly used for assassin and mages that like to do a lot of burst damage, because all of these runes in this tree is all about dealing more damage in a short amount of time. We're going to be taking a look at the first row first. The first row has 2 runes which you're going to be very familiar with. Scorch, damaging an enemy champion with an ability will burn them, dealing bonus magic damage based on level over a second. And then you have Sudden Impact, which will be after exiting stealth or using a dash, leap, blink or teleport effect, and damaging an enemy champion grants you with 13 armor pen and 13 magic pen for a few seconds. So both of these 2 runes are very familiar, but one new rune in the first row that we're going to be taking a look at is Shield Bash. Now, Shield Bash is a very cool and unique rune in a way, because it says after receiving a healing or shielding effect, your next attack against an enemy champion will be empowered. Now, this works on AD carries. This works on champions that, you know, basically receive a healing or shielding effect from your support. So for example, you're an AD carry down the bot lane, you have a Janna or a Lulu or a Soraka or anyone that gives you healing or shielding. Shield Bash will work with them heals and shields, and it will allow you to deal bonus damage plus 20% of your attack damage and plus 10% ability power adaptive damage. It does have quite a long cooldown, 7-second cooldown, so I wouldn't really recommend it too much for AD carries down the bot lane, but a few champions I would recommend to run this on is someone like Camille. Now, Camille is a champion that the passive actually works with Shield Bash. So when you get your passive shield, whether it be that AD shield or the AP shield with Camille, this works with Shield Bash, allowing you to deal that little bit of bonus damage every single time your shield will proc. So when you dash in, when you auto attack, you gain the shield, you can then do another auto attack afterwards and deal that little bit of extra damage. Someone like Riven, for example, that gives you a shield when you use your third ability. Again, that will work with Shield Bash. And actually, there are items that can work with Shield Bash as well. Items like Bloodthirster. Bloodthirster, when you get that first instance of the shield from Bloodthirster, this actually counts towards Shield Bash and will allow you to deal the extra damage. Now, one thing this doesn't work on is things like self-heal. So things like Omnivamp, for example. You know, if you get a little bit of healing from Omnivamp, even though you do get like that first instance of healing from when you auto attack, unfortunately, that does not count towards Shield Bash. Taking a look at the second row for the Domination tree, we have 3 new runes that have come into Wild Rift. We have Empowered Attack, Cheap Shot, and Mark the Week. So let's go through all of them individually to see what they are like. First one is Empowered Attack. So every 10 seconds, the next attack will be empowered, dealing 10 to 35 bonus adaptive damage. Again, your bonus adaptive damage is dependent on AD or AP damage. Now, again, there is something wrong with this description. Now, when I tested out Empowered Attack, I realized that damage was actually higher than what the number actually says there in the description. I then took a look at the patch notes, the official patch notes for Wild Rift, and I was like, wait, the official patch notes has a different number than what it has in game in the description. I'll show you what it says on the patch notes. On the patch notes, it says every 10 seconds, the next attack will be reinforced, dealing 35 to 50 bonus adaptive damage. Now, this description on the website is actually correct, and the description that is on the game is actually wrong. Now, before I get into showing you why the description in game is wrong and why the one on the website is correct, as you can see with Lucian here, there is a little red flashing light. That shows you that your empowered attack is up and available. So every single time you have this empowered attack up and available, look to try and play aggressive, look to try and auto attack enemy champions, because this will be very, very important to deal a little bit of extra damage. Now, if I do one auto attack with this empowered attack on Lucian, I deal 76 damage, whereas a normal one deals 53 damage. So I'm actually getting about a 20 increase in damage at level 15, which seems quite correct. You know, I can auto attack again, 78, and then back down to 53. So again, it's kind of like a 20 to 25 extra damage that you're getting. But the really interesting one is when you're actually level 1, your empowered attack does 50 damage, but your normal one only does 32. So that's an 18 damage increase. That's a lot more than the 10 damage that they're supposed to be, you know, saying with the description in the game. Now, as mentioned, it is adaptive damage, so this damage is actually reduced by quite a lot, because as you can see by the target dummy has 100 armor, so we're not actually going to be dealing as much damage to the target dummy as, say, like a champion with like 10 armor in the early game or 20 armor in the early game. So it is a little bit nerfed because of the armor that's on the target dummy. But as I mentioned, I just wanted to show you all that this rune description in game is actually incorrect, and I think the one on the website is the one that's actually correct. So yeah, 50 damage and then 32. That at level 1 alone just shows to me that that is more than the 10 amount that they're quoting for the early game. So I just wanted to check it out, but overall I don't think the rune is too great. You can maybe use this on some long range aggressive marksman down in the bot lane, but other than that, I think there are a lot better options in that second row in the domination tree. For the next rune, we're going to be taking a look at Cheap Shot. Now, again, Cheap Shot's description is not the best, to be honest with you. It's very vague, it's very difficult to understand, but don't worry, I got your back and I got everything covered for you with this rune. So Cheap Shot is you deal damage, bonus true damage, to enemies whose movement is impaired, and it has a 7-second cooldown. Now, there's so many questions about this rune that I've gotten from the community and from everyone else that I went to go and do some testing, and I've got the exact numbers and the exact, you know, description and everything of how this rune works. So champions like Ashe, for example, actually before that, let's talk about impairing the movement. Now, impairing the movement actually counts as slows. So say, for example, like Singe's first ability, Poison, with being able to slow with that with Rylai's. Ashe's auto attacks also work as a slow, but impair is also things like charms, knockups, roots, and things like that. So it's a bit like immobilizing, but it includes slows as well at the same time. So say, for example, someone like Ashe. Ashe's auto attacks always slow enemy champions. Every single time you auto attack, you slow enemy champions. With Cheap Shot, you're only going to be getting the true damage on that first auto attack. That's it. You just get the first auto attack, and then Cheap Shot goes on that 7-second cooldown. Exactly the same with Singed, for example. Singed with Rylai's. If you use that first ability to like go around in a circle and, you know, deal damage and everything, it will only work on that one single tick, and again go on a 1-second cooldown. But one cool thing to note with Singed and just Cheap Shot in general is that it does work with damage over time. So if you're proccing Rylai's and if you're slowing a lot with Singed, every 7 seconds you're going to be dealing true damage, because it's going to be dealing damage over time, and then it's also going to be slowing because of Rylai's. That's a cool little interaction you can have in there. Champions like Ahri, again, for example, Ahri's charm, the damage only works on the impair effect. It doesn't work on the damage afterwards. Even though it says deals true damage to those enemies who is impaired, I was like, okay, so the enemy is going to be impaired and then I'm going to deal true damage afterwards. But no, it's actually the true damage on the impaired effect. So you're going to get the true damage on Ahri charm, the true damage on Ashe's first auto attack, because that's the impair, Singe's first time that he uses his, you know, Rylai's and dealing damage there. So it's really, really important to know that, and it makes it kind of a little bit weaker than maybe what I first thought. Now, this doesn't work on AoE abilities either. It only works on the first unit here, or the first champion here. Doesn't work on, like, if for example you use Singe, you run around in a circle. It doesn't work like that on multiple enemy champions. Doesn't work like that. It only works on one single hit, which is very important to know. For the final rune for the second row of this domination tree, we're going to be taking a look at Mark of the Week. Again, quite a confusing rune with how the description is worded, but I'll explain to you as simple and as in-depth as possible. So using abilities to deal damage to enemy champions will mark them as weak, increasing damage taken by them by 4 to 7%. The mark disappears after they take ability damage 3 times or after 7 seconds have passed. There's a lot of confusing wording in this rune, I must admit, a lot of confusing wording. At the start, it says using abilities to deal damage. Now, these abilities can be either AP or AD damage. The same with when they take ability damage 3 times at the end when Mark the Weak procs on an enemy champion. That's really important to note. So you can still use this rune on champions like Zed, because even though his abilities do AD damage, it's still an ability and it will still work. Same with AP abilities, pretty self-explanatory. Akali, for example, really good with Mark of the Week because you'll be able to dash in and mark someone as weak and deal more damage to them. In terms of auto attacks do not work with Mark of the Week. It doesn't proc Mark of the Week, or it doesn't allow you to proc Mark of the Week. It also doesn't increase your attack damage when you mark someone as weak. So if you use an ability on an enemy champion, you then try and auto attack that champion, you'll still be doing the exact same damage. You won't be able to deal increased damage. This rune only works on abilities, but not only does it work on your abilities, but it also works on your team's abilities. So say, for example, if you proc someone with Mark of the Week, an ally champion can come up like an Akali and deal extra damage to that same champion that you just procced with Mark of the Week, and that will count as one of your 3 instances of ability damage until Mark of the Week expires. So there's a lot to go through in this rune. I'm going to quickly show you some gameplay and a few tips and tricks with Mark of the Week to show you exactly how it works. So there's a few important things to note with Mark of the Week. There's actually an indicator that goes on enemy champions when you've marked them as weak. So if I use an ability here with Ezreal, you can see that little target above the target dummy. That means that champion is procced with Mark of the Week. That means my next 3 abilities, or when 7 seconds have passed, that will expire. Again, it doesn't increase your auto attack damage. So if I auto attack, I do 57 damage per auto attack. If I use an ability and proc Mark of the Week when the cooldown does get expired, there we go, Mark of the Week, my auto attacks, again, they still only deal 57 damage. But your other abilities will be able to deal more damage. Now, your abilities that you deal to this same champion that's Mark of the Week, it doesn't have to be unique abilities. It doesn't have to be different abilities. It could be the same ability every single time. Again, as I mentioned, this can work on allied champions as well. You know, if you proc someone with Mark of the Week, say like Ezreal, you proc someone Mark of the Week with your first ability, you can then, you know, allied champions can then walk up. You can see here, as soon as you hit your 3 abilities afterwards, the target mark will go. That's when you know the Mark the Week, when Mark the Week is off. So when you're on the map and when you see a champion with Mark of the Week, just go through your head and think, you know, can I do enough damage? Can I do enough bonus damage to this champion to be able to kill it? Maybe, you know, that could be the difference between killing a champion and maybe not killing a champion if they procced with Mark of the Week. So this rune could be really good, as I mentioned, for assassins, so champions like Akali or Zed, but also can be pretty good for supports because it can give you your team a little bit of extra damage, because this rune is a bit like weakness but without needing to impair the movement. You just need to land an ability and then your team and yourself will be able to do more damage with your abilities. Now you're probably wondering, what is the better rune to take on some champions? Is it Cheap Shot or is it Mark of the Week? I did some testing on Ahri. Ahri, I think, is a champion that uses both Cheap Shot and Mark of the Week very well. And surprisingly, you deal more damage with Cheap Shot than what you do with Mark of the Week. Now, you have to remember, with Mark of the Week, it was quite surprising when I did this, but Mark of the Week is not true damage. Mark of the Week can still be reduced by any armor or magic resist that enemy champions deal, whereas Cheap Shot is just flat out true damage. It's just gonna be true damage, and true damage ignores all armor and magic resist. So that's the important thing to note with this combo and with this testing, is that Yes, Mark the Weak, in my opinion, can be better because you can deal more ability damage in a short amount of time and also increases your allies' ability damage at the same time. But Cheap Shot could be good for very good single target champions like Ari, that if you land one charm, that little bit of extra true damage that you deal can be the difference between you killing someone and you not killing someone. Moving on down to the third and final row of the Domination tree. There's a lot of new runes in this tree, that is for sure. We've got Eyeball Collector, Ingenious Hunter, and Zombie Ward. So we're going to go through each of them individually. First, let's take a look at Eyeball Collector. Eyeball Collector's description is completely off. It's very, very wrong. By the first look of it, you might think that this is the worst rune that has ever been created in Wild Rift, but the numbers are completely wrong. They're not correct at all. The first part is correct, but the second part isn't. So if you just read it in general, so you gain AD or AP after each unique enemy champion takedown, which is also wrong. It stacks up to 10 times and you gain a bonus AD or AP upon reaching 10 stacks. Now, I'm going to give you a description from the Chinese server. Again, this was provided to me by Chose, so big massive shout out to him. Thanks for doing the content that he does. Eyeball Collector, as you can see here, so you still gain the same amount. You still gain attack damage or ability power, so the 0.5 or the 1 ability power is correct, but then it says when an enemy is taken down. So in this description, you don't need to get unique takedowns, but in Eyeball Collector you do need unique takedowns. But the confusing thing is, you stack Eyeball Collector 10 times, but there's not 10 unique champions on the map. There's only 5 unique champions on the map. So the description in game actually doesn't make any sense. And you stack up to 10 times. And when you get these 10 stacks, you gain a bonus 10 attack damage or 20 ability power. So you can actually get quite a lot in general. You can get 30 ability power and about 15 AD. So you get quite a lot. But the big thing to note with Eyeball Collector is that it is not unique takedowns. It's not unique takedowns. You can take down the same champion 10 times in a row and this doesn't matter. It will still stack Eyeball Collector, which is very, very important. A few other things to note as well is you still need to be involved with the kill to gain the stack. I thought that this case of the new description, I was like, oh, maybe you don't actually need to be involved with the kill at all. Maybe it's just however many kills your team gets. Nope, you still have to be involved with the kill, but you do have to get a takedown, which means that you have to get an assist or a kill on an enemy champion to get them 10 stacks. So all you need is 10 kills or assists, and then you'll be able to get the full stacks of Eyeball Collector. So you can get 10 kills, 2 assists, you can get 1 kill, 9 assists, etc, etc. You kind of understand how that works. And like I said, the big thing is being able to get, you know, the 15 AD and the 30 ability power in total, which overall, it's probably better to go for an AP champion for this type of rune, and especially for Zombie Ward later on, because you get more ability power than attack damage. But overall, it's still not bad to get with attack damage. I think the only downside to this is 10 stacks is still a lot. 10 stacks is a lot. Like, being able to get 10 takedowns is still going to take a long amount of time. So I still don't think this rune is good in general, but it's nice to know that the rune is not as bad as what the description says in game. It's still okay. You can still go for it on AP champions if you look to trying to roam around and get kills. I think that's where this rune really comes into benefit. You know, champions like maybe Evelyn, for example, Ari, Aurelian Soul, champions that want to roam and try and get as many kills and assists as possible. So you can stack this up as quick as possible, get that bit of extra AD or AP, and look to carry your team. For our second last rune in the Domination tree, we have Ingenious Hunter. Now, Ingenious Hunter is a very unique rune that has been brought to Wild Rift. This item works with item ability haste. Now, item ability haste works on items that have a cooldown reduction. Items like Guardian Angel, items like Steric's Gauge. But as far as I'm aware with my testing that I did, this does not work with boots enchants. So things like Stasis, Locket enchant, anything like that, it didn't actually reduce the cooldown for me. Let me know if your testing was different, but I basically joined the game with Ingenious Hunter. I started a practice mode with Ingenious Hunter. I got the boots after 6 minutes and it didn't reduce the cooldown. It was exactly the same as before. But something like Steric's Gauge, for example, can be reduced in the cooldown. Now, you gain a bonus 4 item ability haste after each enemy unique takedown, and it can stack up to 5 times. This is actually correct. Unlike Eyeball Collector and Zombie Ward, which we'll see later on, this is actually correct. This actually works with unique champion takedown. This doesn't actually work with killing the same champion 5 times in a row. You have to kill every individual champion on the map to get the full 40 item ability haste, which can be quite good because it can add up to 40 item ability haste in total. Now, how does item ability haste work in terms of percentages? Well, roughly one item ability haste roughly works out around 0.75%. So you're getting at the start of the game, the 20 item ability haste, you're roughly getting around, 17, 18%. Then when you get the full stacks at 40 item ability haste, you go to about 30% cooldown reduction, which is pretty big for some items like Sterix Gauge and Guardian Angel. You have to remember that you're adding item ability haste every time, so it's kind of like adding percentages every single time. So when you're adding percentages, you're never going to get actually the full value. Like 5% plus 5% plus 5% plus 5%, it's not actually going to add up to 20% because you're just adding percentages every single time to an already valued amount that is already there. So it's quite difficult to kind of understand and get into, but that's how it works out. Start the game about 17%. At the end of the game, when you get all the unique champion takedowns, you get 30%. Now, how does that relate in terms of items? So items like Sterix Gauge, for example, has a 90-second cooldown without going for Ingenious Hunter. So when you have 0 item ability haste. When you start the game with Ingenious Hunter with 20 item ability haste, this goes down to 74 seconds. And then if you get all 5 unique takedowns, this goes down to 63 seconds, which is 30%. Now, it sounds pretty good on Sterix Gauge, but imagine how good it sounds on Guardian Angel. Guardian Angel without Ingenious Hunter starts with a 210-second cooldown, which is a very, very long amount of time. With Ingenious Hunter, with the 20 item ability haste at the start of the game, this goes down to 173 seconds. So again, very, very good to go down to 173 seconds, even without going for the unique takedowns afterwards. But then for the complete one, so if you get 40 item ability haste and you get every single unique takedown, Guardian Angel goes down to 147-second cooldown. That is basically over a 60-second cooldown reduction. That's basically a minute cooldown, which is huge for items like Guardian Angel. So I could see this actually being really, really good. If you want to build items like Guardian Angel, I could see this being insanely good. Being able to reduce Guardian Angel's cooldown by a whole whopping 1 minute is pretty big. It can definitely be the difference. But again, you do have to get unique champion takedowns to get this into full effect, which can be very, very difficult, but hopefully you'll be able to get unique takedowns throughout the game. But let me know if you found any other items or any other cool interactions with Ingenious Hunter. I test out a few items myself, but it's basically any items that have a cooldown that will be reduced from Ingenious Hunter. On to the final domination rune for patch 4.3, we have Zombie Ward. Zombie Ward is a very cool and unique rune to take on a lot of supports or a lot of junglers, because it does give you a lot of attack damage and ability power when last hitting wards. Now again, the second part of the numbers is wrong, kind of like Eyeball Collector. The first part is okay, you gain 2 AD or 4 ability power, but the gaining bonus is actually wrong. The gaining bonus afterwards is actually 10 attack damage or 20 ability power. But before we get into that, let's talk about the rune itself. So after removing an enemy ward, it spawns a zombie ward in its place, granting vision of the surrounding area for 120 seconds. And you also gain 2 AD and 4 ability power when you last hit the wards. Now, there's a few things to note with Zombie Ward. The first one is that you need to last hit the wards. This is really, really important to know. You can't just hit the ward once and let your AD carry hit the ward if you're playing support, for example. You need to make sure you last hit the ward. And this also goes out to AD carry players, or really any players. If you have Zombie Ward, please let your team know that you have Zombie Ward, or at least have it there so then people can see the zombie ward spawns when you kill a ward. And if you're on the team with when someone has zombie ward, please let them last hit the ward. Yes, you don't get the gold, but the ability power and AD that someone can get from zombie ward is so vital, and you do get a lot when it adds up in the end. When you add it all up, you can get a total of 20 AD or 20 ability power. But again, you have to make sure you last hit the ward. Most wards have the 3 hits, so you just hit it 3 times, or what I like to do, if no one really understands, is hit the ward once, let them hit it a second time, and then you hit it again. So it's like, cool, I killed the ward anyway. Zombie wards do not count as a ward, so it's only normal wards and control wards. You can't do this crazy thing where someone on the enemy team has zombie ward, they kill your ward, they get a stack, then you kill the zombie ward and you get a stack. Unfortunately, that doesn't work. You have to kill either a ward or a control ward to be able to get the stack towards zombie ward. But yeah, as I said, it is 2 AD or 4 ability power, but then when it stacks up, it's a 10 AD and 20 ability power. And one thing that, the description is correct is over again on the patch notes website. So the description in game is wrong, but the official patch notes is correct. I'll show it on the screen now. So you can see here, after removing an enemy ward, it spawns a zombie ward, granting vision, also grants 2 AD out of 4 ability power. But again, at the end, it stacks up to 5 times and gives a bonus of 10 attack damage or 20 ability power upon reaching 5 stacks. I mean, it even says there reading 5 stacks, so even that is wrong. That's not like, I don't know what's going on. It's all a mess right now. But yeah, anyway, I mean, overall, this is a really powerful rune. This is, I think, in my opinion, very underrated. You could take this on a lot of enchanter supports that like ability power, champions like Nami, Karma, Janna, because you'll be contesting for wards in the lane a lot. You'll be killing a lot of wards, a lot of control wards, and when you'll be roaming around the map, you'll also be doing the same thing. And speaking of roaming around the map, junglers are also another position where this can work out very well, because when you're roaming around the map with jungler, most of the time you're taking sweeping lens, and when you use sweeping lens, it reveals wards around an area around you, which then you can try and last hit. And if you last hit, you're going to get that additional AD and ability power, which you're going to do a lot throughout the game, because you're going to roam around, you're going to try and look for ganks, and you're going to try and clear as much vision, especially around objectives, as much as possible. And all you have to do is kill 5 wards. 5 wards does not seem like a lot. Like, you get 2 AD or 4 ability power with each stack, and then you get 20 ability power and 10 attack damage when you reach 10 stacks. So like I said, in total, 20 AD, 40 ability power is a lot for this domination rune, and a lot to take away, and a lot to kind of be able to carry your team. All right, that's everything to do with the domination tree. Thank you all for watching this video. Be on the lookout over the next 2 days for the resolve tree and also the inspiration tree. But this is probably going to be the longest one out of them all. There's so many cool little combos that you can do with the domination tree. And also there's a few problems, as you can tell as well, with the domination tree. But I'm glad I cleared it up for you all. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Make sure you comment down below. Let me know your thoughts of the domination tree. And I'll see you in the next wild video. Peace.